All right, we are recording. Here we go. All right, so title blocks. When you open up a blank template in AutoCAD, this is, you get an out-of-the-box template, right? Or a title block template, I guess I should say, right? So if we're over here in Paperspace, right, here is what it looks like, okay? Now, I'm going to have you all draw a title block, and in fact, let me just pull up our canvas here. Okay, 1310. And we'll go to assignments. Title blocks. And here we go. I'll let you see what yours is going to look like, right? But you're going to be creating a title block for your school projects that you're going to be generating here, like your final project and some assignments until that point, right? And the thing about title blocks is that, you know, we use a lot of different page sizes, and so you're going to have several different sizes because we're going to be using several different page sizes. So when we generate these, you're going to have two 8.5 by 11s, and you're going to have two 11 by 17 inch title blocks, okay? Oop. And that's what they look like. Now, what things are on these? What kind of information is contained in our title block? We have our name, we have our school name, we have our class name, we have our drawing name, the scale, and the date, right? So again, just basic information about our project. Is there something?
Oh, just that it's not showing up.
Oh, it's not showing up? Nobody said anything. Oh my gosh, you guys.
I can see your facial expression that you're like,
Were you trying to tell? I'm sorry. I'm going along. Well, here they are. Here they are. Let's reintroduce said title blocks. Ta-da! Right? It's funny. Here they are. So this is what ours are going to look like. Okay. And what's going to be on our title blocks? Right? We have our name, we have our school name, our class, our drawing name, scale, and date. Right? So that's what ours are going to look like. These title blocks are generally going to be about the same size as the page we're printing, right? So that one that I showed you over there, that's a 24 by 36, and so the title block is going to be about that size. It's going to be slightly smaller because we want it to fit nicely on the page and not kind of be on the boundary or too small or cut off, right? Okay, so let's talk about how we're going to generate these. Here is again what the information is going to look like. Okay. So I'm going to keep this over here very close so that we can pull it back up if we need to. The nice thing is that you kind of already have a template to look at, right? We have the assignment that you can look at. But I want to talk about in general how you're going to create these. Okay. We're going to create them in model space. We're going to create them using just regular line geometry, right? At this point in time, we're going to add some attributes into the title block so that when you go to insert your name, it gives you a prompt name, Shelley Bodley, and then what drawing is this? Oh, it's A101 or A102 or W block assignment or whatever. So we're going to add some attributes in here so that we can be prompted to enter information into this. And I think I said it, but I'll just say it again. We're going to make it a block, okay? So we'll draw it in model space, we'll make it a block, and then we'll add some attributes to it, right? And then we'll talk about how we're going to use it, okay? Yep. All right. So first thing, okay, don't be confused by the fact that the template file that AutoCAD uses has the title block in Paperspace. Don't be confused by that, right? Because eventually we will be using it in Paperspace because we're going to print with it, right? We want this border around the edge so that we can, when we print it's around the border. So we will eventually use it in Paperspace. But when you're actually constructing these, when you're drawing them from scratch, they're drawn in model space because we have to create them, we have to make them into a block essentially. We have to create blocks. All right, so I'm going to come back over here to my Home tab. And I'm going to choose layer 0, of course, because I want to make this a block, right? I'm going to, let me actually try and get both of these things on the screen here. Okay. There we go. All right. Oh, that's not. Well, I accomplished something there. Okay. Okay. There we go. All right. So let's look at this. This is this is 11 by 8.5 by 11 right now. But you will need to do 4 of these. So 8.5 by 11, 8.5 by 11, 11 by 17, 11 by 17. Okay. So I'm going to come over here to my model space, and I'm going to click on line, and I'm going to start drawing this. Now I could have used lines, polylines, rectangles, right? But essentially I want to create an outer boundary for this. So this thing is going to be 8.5. Oh, yep, architectural. Okay. It's going to be 8.5 by, ooh, it's tiny. There we go. 11. 8.5. Close it up. Okay. So I have my first rectangle. Now if I look at this, that's going to be that outer boundary, 8.5 by 11. That's the exact same size of the paper, right? And I want it to be a little bit smaller, right? And so I'm going to offset it in probably about 1/2 of an inch. Offset 1/2 of an inch. There we go. And F for fillet, or I could have trimmed out all that stuff too, right? F for fillet, click, 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 enter, click, click, enter, click, click, enter. Okay. So what I'm eventually going to end up doing is I'm going to either put this outer boundary on a def points layer, not a def points layer, sorry, a non-printable layer, that's what I meant. I'm going to keep the inner boundary solid, right? So if you want to be able to see this outer boundary but not have it print, when it's in the block, put it on a non-printable layer. Even if it's, you know, not layer 0, make a new one. Like a viewport layer, exactly. Make it non-printable. That's maybe a very good way of doing it, right? Create a layer called viewport. Obviously it's for viewports, but then you could put it on there, right? And we're gonna keep this inner boundary solid, of course, because we have this line right here. The next thing we wanna do here is we wanna create this little information block right here, okay? Now you can get your ruler out and you can kind of measure all of these I guess divisions, right? So maybe this thing is 1 inch long and this is 4 inches long and this is 1 inch and that's 1 inch, right? I'm just gonna guess today because I don't really know, right? And in fact, I'm gonna rotate this so it's portrait, the same orientation as this so that we can, you know, so it's the same as we're drawing it. You know, guys, I'm just thinking about this. Let me pause for a second. I need to email our intro class to remind everyone. Hold on, I was thinking that might be a good idea. Take 5 minutes. I'm just going to send everybody an announcement so that we don't have everybody showing up. You two are going to get pings on your phone, right? There we go. All right, done. Back to Titleblocks. All right, so let's talk about how we are going to draw this information block right here. Oh, and where did it go? Where did it go? There it is. Okay. All right, so I'm going to assume that this thing is maybe about 3/4 of an inch tall. So I'm going to use the offset command, and I'm going to type 3/4, which is also 0.75 of an inch, right? I didn't input information like this in the very beginning because I didn't want to confuse you with the idea of a decimal and the idea of decimals and architectural units, right? But I'm in architectural units right now, and when I do things, you'll see me do this all the time. Like I'll type offset, enter, and for a 3/4 of an inch, right, I'll type 0.75, okay, enter. And 0.75, that's 3/4 of an inch, and it is a decimal, right? But because we're in architectural units, that's 3/4 of an inch, right? Because inches are the default unit in AutoCAD. So I don't want you to get confused thinking that, oh, she's inputting decimal input, in that I'm actually inputting a 1/12 of an increment, right? I'm inputting architectural units, but just using a decimal format, right, to achieve it, okay? And I do that because when I type 3/4, I have to look at the keyboard and find the slash, right? And I don't like doing that. So 0.75, really quick, 3, and then I have to look for it, quarter, it's a pain in the neck, right? So you'll see me do that all the time. So I just typed in 0.75, which is 3/4 of an inch, and I offset it, okay? Now I need to do these little divisions. So there's 1, 2 divisions, and then here's a middle one right here, right? So I'm going to start offsetting maybe this line over here, or I can draw a line from this line. Maybe we'll do that. L for line, shift right click from, click here over, we'll do 1 inch, enter. And I get my first division. That looks like it's too narrow, so M for move, 1 more inch. Okay. Then I have this long thing here, and I also have this over here. This looks like maybe it's 2 inches on this side. So maybe what I'll do is offset 2 inches, and whatever's left over gets this space in here. And actually this might have been 3/4 of an inch, so I'll move it over 1/4 of an inch. That looks pretty good. So I've got all this weird geometry. It doesn't look quite right, but you know, that's all right. We can clean it up, okay? I'm going to TR, enter, enter, trim, right? Looks pretty good. And then I'm going to fillet this corner right here, okay? F for fillet. I need a radius, R for radius, enter, and I'm going to do 0.5. We'll do a 1/2 inch. Looks pretty good. Oh geez, but I killed that piece of geometry. In fact, well, it's maybe not as shallow as I wanted, so maybe I'll do 3/4, right? F for fillet, R for radius, 0.75, enter. There you go. That looks way better, right? So I'm going to delete that. L for line, right? So there's a lot of going back and forth in AutoCAD. We redraw it in. Don't panic if you accidentally delete something, right? Lines are free. We can draw as many as we want. That's just fine. So F for fillet, 0.75, enter. There we go. L for line. There we go. Okay. So looks pretty good, right? I'm going to EX, enter, enter, extend, and I'm going to extend that down, and that looks pretty good. All right. So I've got this little area, I've got this area, but now I just have a few more kind of intermediate lines to draw. L for line, midpoint to midpoint, right? Midpoint, well, I can't really quite meet the midpoint of that arc or wherever, so I could extend that out, right? Or I could not quite make it to there and EX, enter, enter. Right, there we go. All right, so looks pretty good. Okay, let's see, this one down here needs to be divided. So L for line, I'm going to divide that in half. Okay, looks pretty good. So now it's time to, sorry, there was one more thing I thought I had to do. Let's see, we've got that one, we've got that one, we've got drawing scale. Okay. One other final thing that I need to do, I know that I'm going to want to center this text in these little areas, right? And that's a little bit hard to do, just kind of eyeballing it. So I'm going to draw some line work in here, just thinking ahead. And I'm going to delete these after I'm done, but I'm just drawing these lines across here so that I can snap to a midpoint. Yep, exactly. So pretty easy. There you go. Okay. All right, time to add some attributes. Okay, so we have the basis of our block right here, and now I need to embed this information into here so it makes it very easy and usable, right? And so I'm going to come up here to annotate, or sorry, insert, define attributes, and I'm going to create my attributes. Now, if I always know that I'm going to be the only one using this, right, I could make a constant attribute here. This would be a good way, place to put a constant attribute. If I want to be prompted for the name, I could uncheck that, and I could just put a prompt for, type your name in there. Okay. I'm going to, for this one, I'm going to leave it variable. I'm going to give this a tag that's called your underscore name. The prompt will be your name. Actually, I should probably capitalize. Your name. And then the default, you could put your name as the default, right? And then if it needed to change, you could change it. Okay. For this first one, well, and these are not stacked one on top of each other, just like the ones we did last week. So these attributes will have to be justified and defined. The other ones we did with the doors and the windows stacked on top of each other so that we could just choose a line below previous attribute when we did multiples, right? But we can't do that with this one. But I want to do middle center. I want to choose my text style as, we'll do Roman, whatever's in here. And the text height, this is 3/4 of an inch. We'll do maybe 1/4 of an inch. 0. Ooh, I've got surveyor units as my units. I think I need to change a few things. Specify the insertion point on screen. Everything else looks good. Okay. Click. Oop, that's probably actually too big, huh?
Good question. So we have to use annotated text in this?
No. Nope. Because this is going to go into paper space, so it's 1-to-1.
Right.
Yep. I'm going to redo this one because I think what did I do? 1/4 of an inch? Too big. Okay. Define attributes. Your name. Okay. Middle center. And we'll do Roman. We'll do 1/8 of an inch. Much better. Okay, so there's my name. Next one, we want to do SLCC, and we're going to go back up here, define attributes. Okay, and your school. You could type out Salt Lake Community College, that's fine, right? Middle center. Looks good. And this will be, again, the constant, it seems like a good idea. This could be a constant. So it grays out the prompt, right, and just says SLCC will always go in there, right? I'm always like, oh, we got to be careful because we might want to change it one time, So I tend to stay away from constants, but in this case, it's likely fine. Your school, click. Okay. And Arch 1310, this will be the class, right? So we're going to define a few more, define attributes, and your school, and this will be the default. We don't want this to be constant, we'll change that, or not your school, sorry, your class, and we'll put the default as Arch 1310. Okay, we want this middle center, and we'll leave this as Roman, 1/8 inch, okay. Center, click, there we go. And the drawing, that will be the drawing name, so if it's floor plan or elevation or whatever, right? So we're gonna do we have 3 more attributes. I'll just move through these pretty quickly. Let's see. And we'll leave default blank. We've got middle center and Roman, we'll leave that 1/8 inch. Okay, drawing name, click. Okay, and we've got scale, And then we'll do equals 1 foot 0 inches. I don't know what the scale is, but I'll just put in the default as that so that I can enter the front portion of it, right? Middle center. Roman 1/8 inch. Okay. Click. All right. One more. Morning. Define attributes. And we'll do the date. And we've got middle center, Roman, 1/8 inch, okay. Click. All right. So we've drawn our title block, right? We have the larger outer boundary, we have the inner boundary, we have all of our attributes created, right? I'm going to delete this geometry that just was there to help me center those pieces of text. Okay, looks pretty good. I do need to put this on a default layer, or a non-printable layer, default non-printable layer. So I'm going to come here to, I'm going to bring that full screen, to home, layer properties. I'm going to click on new, oh, we have a viewport one created already, but it's not non-printable, so we'll click non-printable. Close that out, and I'm going to click these outer lines and make them non-printable. Okay. Now a couple things, so you know I've said, and this is still true, always create your blocks on layer 0, right? Because when you insert them, what that does is it allows you to insert them on the layer that is current, and the current layer, it'll allow you to assume the properties of that current layer, right? So the pen weights read essentially. So that is still true. So what happens when I assign an actual layer in a block, right? What happens when I assign an actual layer like viewport and I embed that into that block is that it doesn't ever change. So if the pen weights need to be very light, and like this blue one's non-printable, but if it were blue and very heavy, right, whatever, it would always print really heavy and you wouldn't be able to change it, right? So if you use the block in a certain instance where that wasn't appropriate, it wouldn't make sense, okay? So if you know, there are cases, and once you get to be used to AutoCAD a little bit more, there will be times where, you know, you'll break the rules and you will add embedded layers into your blocks, right? Just like this one, I'm going to embed this non-printable layer so that when I insert this as a block, it will never
have to worry about it.
Exactly, you'll never have to worry about it, right? But it will be there for reference, and that's great, okay? So, so that, you know, that's appropriate. So I've got my block, my title block created, right? I've got all of my attributes in here. Now I'm going to W block this block. So I'm going to go to Insert, Create Block, and I want to create a W block. And I'm going to choose a pick point, which will probably just be this bottom corner. Click, select the objects. Oh, dang it, sorry. Escape, escape. I did something wrong. W block, pick point, click, click. I had selected everything, right? But in actuality, what I want to do is pick the geometry first, right? We talked about this last time. Very carefully. And then I want to select my attributes in order, right? So whatever order I want to enter those in. So click, 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 right? Hit enter. And so I've selected everything. I've got my my attributes selected, and they'll define really well. Now I'm going to save my W block out, right? I'm going to create a new folder in my block library called annotation. Right, and you'll notice just in general working, you're going to start building a good block library, right? Annotation, click, click, and we will call this one TB, you know, or title block, whatever, title block 8.5 by 11. And this will be a portrait one. So again, just somewhat descriptive so that you know what it is, right? Okay. I'm going to hit save. Okay. And I know that it's worked because I get a prompt and it says, hey, why don't you input all this information? Sure, there's my name, there's the class, the drawing name will maybe say floor plan. This is going to be maybe something like 1/4 of an inch is equal to a foot, and today is 10/26/2017. Okay. Oop. It's all a little bit big, isn't it? I might have to adjust my text a tiny bit. Ooh, we're gonna have to go in how to edit attributes a tiny. We'll see if it works. I'll give you just a warning on that when we get to it, right? But in general, this is what it's supposed to look like. Okay. So I've just created my first attributed title block. Before I talk about how we're going to use it, let's edit one of these attributes. Okay. There is a command called Batman, B-A-T-T-M-A-N, Batman, and it's block attribute manager. Okay. And this is where if you have some problems with your attributes, that this should be where you go and make the changes, and this is in hopes that the next time that you use this block with these attributes, that the changes are fixed, right? Or they update, they're fixed. I'm going to just say attributes are great. They generally work really well, but they can be finicky, okay? And so I don't put a ton of faith in the fact that this will maybe fix it. So you may end up exploding this block and reblocking it, which is what we may end up doing, but I'm going to give it a whirl.
So I forgot to middle center justify a couple things. I have to look properties and changing properties. Is that an okay way of
Yeah,
doing
that's
it?
okay.
Okay.
Over the CH, yeah. So that just is kind of an instance based, right? It moves it over a little, but it doesn't change the block itself, right? It doesn't redefine it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is in hopes of redefining it.
Right, so that's what you do if you haven't turned it into a block yet.
Right,
Got it,
exactly. But I'm not, and in fact, let me just try one thing before I do this, now that I'm remembering. Hold on one second. Let me edit this block. I'm just thinking in my head, maybe a better way of going about this is within the block. Okay, yeah. So I opened up the block, right? I right-clicked, edit block in place. So now I'm in my block editor. I'm going to hit edit on my attribute manager. And I want to do the scale and the date, text options. And the attribute I am looking for, let's see, we've got file name. Oh, no, there we go. I was like, what is happening? Okay, I forgot to choose my actual block. All right, so all of my attributes now are being shown. I'm going to choose the date, okay, and I'm going to hit settings here. Just going to make sure everything is the way I want it, and then I'm going to come over here to edit, and I'm going to change my text options here. So let's see, the width factor, maybe I just need to change the width factor. Let's change it to 0.75 and we'll see how that works. Oh yeah, it looks like the 1017, do you see how that kind of fits in there now, right? Okay, that's pretty good. So I think we're good with that. We'll do the scale factor. I'm going to hit edit and we'll do 0.75 on the width factor. We might need to do a little more than that. 0.7. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm actually kind of just thinking in general I might want to make these all a little bit narrower, but we'll leave it as is. I'm going to hit OK, and I've just essentially edited my attributes, right? And before I did that, I opened the block up. So I'm editing the block. I edit the attributes in that block, right, after that. And I'm hoping that, I'm hoping now that that will work, right? Save changes. Okay. Looks pretty good. All right, so I have my first W block created. All right, I'm going to delete this out, and ooh, I've got some little leftovers that I didn't quite, I'm doing kind of sloppy today. All right, so I'm going to try and reinsert my block. Insert, there's my 8.5 by 11 inch portrait title block. I'm going to click. I'm just going to hit OK, and there it is. And it does not appear as if it actually redefined that block. Let's do this. Let me insert from the actual W block and see if it did. And if not, I'll show you how to fix it for good. Usually that works. Usually, again, not always. Yeah, no, it didn't fix it. Those are still wide. Okay, so what happens when this happens? What do? You're like, oh great, I just created all these attributes, or I did something wrong and I need to fix it, right? And I went in to redefine my block and it didn't work. Well, it didn't work in that we tried to redefine the attribute. We didn't actually delete it and create a new one. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to explode my block here, and it brings me back to all of my attributes. All right. There's two ways I can go about this. I can redefine my attribute. So in your case, Erin, where you have something that was not middle centered, right? You could delete it and recreate the attribute. It's a little more work, right? But then it's done forever.
Yeah.
Okay. So I can do that. With me, my attribute actually functions. It's just a text that is kind of killing it, right? Mm-hmm. And so I could redefine that with a new text, or I could, whatever. But what I could also do is I could come up to annotate and I could change the text style and reblock it. And I think, this is a decision where you think, do I want to create a new text style where this is narrower and these stay the same? Or do I mind that if I change this text style, Roman, right, and I make it like 0.7, nothing is working for me today. That is Roman, right? Yes. Did that regenerate? I don't think that regenerated, did it? What is happening today? 0.7. Oh, goodness. Let's see. Decimal degrees. We'll make sure that's right. That's all good. Okay. So in an ideal world, I could come in here. Let's look at the difference between this and what happens with 1. See, 1 looks like that. Okay. We'll do 0.7. Okay, it did change it, right? Enter. It just isn't representing that change here, which kind of makes me nervous. So I'm just going to recreate the attributes. All right, so I go to Insert, Define Attribute, and we will call one Scale, and middle center, Roman, we'll leave it 1/8 inch, okay. And I didn't get my justification, of course, right? Click, there we go. So now, do you see that now that I'm reinserting it, it's redefined? Do you see how the text is different? Mm-hmm. I'm using the exact same text style as these. I guess my point is very proven here, right? So the attributes are not updating, obviously. But this new one is. So I'm just going to create a new one. I should have done it in the first place. I knew better. All right, we'll do one more. We'll do the date, define attribute, date, and middle center, Roman, 1/8, okay. Click, delete, there we go. All right, so it looks really good. Now it's time to redefine this block, okay? And essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another W block, right block, pick point, right? We're going to do all the same things, convert to blocks, select the objects, and make sure I get all of my geometry this time. There we go. There we go. Okay, and I'm just going to save over the top of that old block. Save. Okay, and it says, hey, there's one already there. We're going to replace it. Okay, so now I've just redefined my block. All right. Okay, I'm going to delete that. But it didn't. Oh my gosh, you guys, today's a day, isn't it? It is really kind of technically Friday for some of us, right? Let's see, what just happened? So it didn't block it. I was thinking it didn't convert to block. All right, select the objects. We'll do it one more time. Sorry, this is... Oh, no, I did do it. I just forgot to select my attributes. It was a block. Sorry, guys. Okay, pick point again. One more time. This is good practice. It's just very good practice. Select objects. I got so focused on the little left behinds from last time that I wanted to make sure I got them. Okay, now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, enter. I'm going to save over the top of this, click, save, okay, replace, and there we go, and it works, right? So I hit okay, and everything looks good. So 10, 26, 2017, much better, fits right in there. So I will just come in, this one was the name, and we'll do 1/4 of an inch is equal to a foot. Much better, right? So I guess it's kind of good. We went the roundabout way, but now you're all familiar with how we're going to do this, right? All right, so in my block library, which I have saved on my desktop, right? It is AutoCAD, block library, and I've got my annotation, and there we go, right? Okay. Let's do one more, right? And then we'll talk about how we're going to use these, right? So I have this title block, right? Now it's time for me to create, I have 3 other title blocks essentially that I need to generate. And they're very similar in nature to this one, right? So I've got 8.5 by 11 portrait, 8.5 by 11 inch landscape. All right. Well, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I have this already drawn. Why don't I just use it again to create the landscape one, right? So I'm going to copy this over. I'm going to explode it. Maybe I already... I'm just going to leave that one alone. I left out a line, I think. I'm going to grab it, move it over, explode it, and I'm going to rotate it. RO. Okay, there's my landscape title block. Right? It has all the same information, your name, your class, everything that I need, right? There we go. Okay, it's all the same information, it's just rotated. So I'm going to W block this one, right block, pick a point, click, select the objects. Right, here we go. I'm going to get everything. Okay, I've got all the geometry. Now it's time to select my attributes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Enter. I'm going to save it out as a W block. So this won't be the same name, but it will be landscape. Landscape. Save. Okay. Okay. All right. So we have our landscape and our portrait 8.5 by 11 inch title blocks, right? Your assignment will be to create the other ones that we did not create here. So we have the 11 by 17s, right? Now, all the information again is the same. So you're going to use the same attributes, but the size of the 11 by 17 is larger, obviously, right? So I'll get you going on how to do that, and then we're going to talk about how to use these. Okay. I'm going to explode this, and I still, again, I want to use this information because it's all valid. It's just the wrong size. The title block's the wrong size, right? So I'm going to use, I'm going to do a line. This one's going to be 17, enter. This one's going to be 11, right? The magic of AutoCAD. I need to move this down a little bit, right? But essentially what I just need to do is I need to stretch this out. So S for stretch. Stretch it out. S for stretch. And I'm going to pick kind of in this middle area to stretch it. You know, I'm going to have to go back. Oop. I didn't want to pull this outer box. There we go, right? So now I still have all these good attributes. I still have all the information I need. The title block is the right size. I'm going to very carefully come in here and delete those lines that I have over the boundary line, right? So now it's really just up to me to kind of, maybe I need to stretch this over a little, like an inch. Maybe this S for stretch. You guys will have to reconfigure the bottom of it, okay? Make it look right. But then you're going to do a portrait and a landscape title block. All right, I'm going to close this drawing out and I'm not going to save it. And everybody panics because you're like, wait a minute, you saved your title blocks in there, but they are saved as W blocks in my block library, right? So I don't have to worry about it. There they are, nice and safe. Okay. So now if I wanted to use them in another drawing, I've drawn a floor plan, right? I open up my floor plan. I say yes. Here's my floor plan. Now I'm going to use my title block to print this, right? I'm going to go into my layout, my paper space. I'm going to choose, well, first of all, I'm going to make sure my page size is the right size. Okay, so this 8.5, is this 8.5 by 11? Is it 11 by 17? Do I want a portrait or a landscape one? And I'm going to, so I'm going to pretend to print, or I can go to my page setup manager. 11 by 17. I'm going to do extents here, center the plot. Okay, so I have, oh wait, sorry. I don't know why I did that. I need more coffee this morning. Okay, apply to layout. Okay, so it is 8.5 by 11, right? 8.5 by 11. To use my title block, and this is valid in any drawing that you open, I'm going to go to Insert, and it's not in here, obviously. All the blocks that are currently created in here are here. More options, or I could have typed Enter, browse. I'm going to choose my portrait, title block, hit, didn't I do a landscape one? Oh yeah, landscape. Open, okay, there it is, right? Place it and click it, click to place it, and the drawing name will be floor plan. This will be, 1/4 of an inch is equal to a foot. We'll do 10, 26, 2017, okay, and there it is. Now this outer, this outer boundary, again, it's set to not plot. I'm gonna just really try and get it on the boundary of that line. It's not gonna print, right? That boundary is not gonna print. What is important is that this title block, these lines, they fit within this this margin, right? Exactly, yeah. And you'll see it went in on the current layer, and that is green. So if you don't want it on green, you would change it to something else, whatever, anno text, or if you don't want text green, you can change the color of it to why would they do that? Bad. Okay. Okay, and it turns to magenta, right? So now when I Control P, preview, there it is. Looks beautiful, right? One thing I do want to point out, right? This is a viewport. I'm going to delete it. So if you look at this piece of paper with just the page on it, you see the outer boundary that doesn't print. We put it on a no plot layer within our block. We see our title block. If I want to create a new viewport, MV, enter, make view, right? And I create a new viewport that fits within that drawing area, right? Double click, center my little drawing, double click out, grab the viewport, and scale it. Oop, way too big. Almost. Right, there you go. Looks pretty good. I'm going to make sure my viewport is not printable. Control P, preview, And looks wonderful, right? So now you don't have to worry about putting your name on there or anything like that, because all of the information about the drawing is on your title block, okay? From now on, all of your drawings need to have the title block on them, right? And they need to be printed from Paperspace. You should have been printing from Paperspace for a long time, but they need to be printed from Paperspace. Let's do one more of these, okay? I'm going to create another layout. Click. Control P, or I could go to, yep.
So you can't, snap your insert to the paper. You just gotta visually get it.
There is something else we can do though. So you can't use the object snap to the paper. It's not an object you can snap to.
Right.
But let me show you a way that you can get it in the same spot every time.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So so we have a new piece of paper here. I could Control P and set up the page, or I could right click and go to Page Setup Manager. New layout. We'll call this 8 by 11 portrait. Okay, and this will be a PDF. Okay, this would be a good thing to do in your template file, right? The one that you always start your drawings with. You know, create the page layout, add your title blocks to it if you want. So I set this up to print again. Letter size, I'm going to do extents, center the plot. This one is going to be portrait though. So I hit OK, set current, and my page size back there changes. Close. I'm going to delete this viewport, and now I'm going to insert my title block, my portrait title block. Okay, I go to Insert, and under Insert it's not available because it hasn't been generated in here, right? So I need to type enter, browse. I'm going to find my portrait title block, hit open, OK. I missed that bottom one, that bottom piece. Now I could come down here and I can eyeball it, and I can get it as close to that boundary as I want, right? And if I put my pick point, my base point down in the bottom right hand corner, that's the 0 point on that object, right? And 0, 0, if I type 0, 0 as the placement point instead of clicking and I hit enter. Oh, our 0, 0 is not, never mind. Okay, I'm gonna have to do something else. Nothing's working today, folks. So what you can do is you can set this at 0, your insertion point to 0, 0 on your block, and then when you bring it into Paperspace, you can type 0, 0 as your insertion, and it goes in at the same time. Yes.
So say you like change the scale in the viewport when you need to change the scale on your title block.
Yeah. Yes. But that, and it's an attribute.
Yeah.
So you can just change it here. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yep. So you could type in, you know, half inch is equal to a foot. Okay. Right. So it goes in half inch. Oh, that was a date. It's a day. Oh no, that is a scale. Okay. Half inch is equal to a foot. Okay. So yeah, and then if it changes, you could to a quarter of an inch, right?
Yeah.
You could double click and you could say, oh yeah, I forgot I changed it to an 1/8 inch or whatever, and hit OK, and it shows it. Yeah. Because on the other, you're saying on the other one I changed it to an 1/8 inch.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Okay, M for move. I'm going to just move this over. But yes, there is a way to get it in the exact right spot. Looks really good, right? MV, make view. Click, click. I like to center my objects. We'll put this on a non-printable layer and make it an 1/8 inch. Pretty darn close. Right, Control P, and all of my settings, because I created a page layout, are inherent in there. I'm going to preview this, and it looks great. Well, actually, I'll print it just so we can look at our PDF. AutoCAD project, okay. There you go. Okay, makes sense so far? Okay, so one final thing for today is adding these. You want to add these to your template, right? So you all at the beginning of the semester, and you may have kept it up and you may have not, but I mean, it's a good idea to keep it up. You should have created a template file, right? Which would be a file that you'd use to start a project every time you start a project. And I'm going to close this out here. Okay. And I'm going to come up here and I'm going to open my template, which is probably blank. So SB template, DWT, that would be the file that I would use to start a brand new drawing every time, right? And it has has nothing in here, obviously. Architectural, I don't have any layers, so mine's not very complete. But what would be really helpful for you would be to create now a few layout tabs and to create some title blocks for yourself, right? So if I come to layout here, okay, first thing I'm going to do, and actually it'd be helpful since we're creating 4 title blocks, right, to create 4 layout tabs. And so I'm going to create 2 8.5 by 11 and 2 11 by 17, okay? And I'm going to right click and I'm going to rename this one 8 by 11 landscape. I'm going to name this one, rename 8 by 11 portrait, okay? And we'll do the other 2 as well. But I'm going to set these up, right click, page setup manager, and I do have 8.5 by 11. I'm going to edit that one and just make sure that it is, oh, I can't modify it. We're going to do new. Okay, 8 by 11 portrait PDF. Okay, so this one's going to be Adobe PDF, letter, extents, right, center the plot, looks good, LaserJet CTB, and I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to create another one, new, 8 by 11 landscape, and that's going to be a PDF as well. Okay. Portrait. Okay. So I have a couple of different layouts created now. On this one I want the landscape one, so I'm going to set current landscape. Oh, I've obviously made an error. Okay. Set landscape, set current. There we go. Now it works. Okay. So I've got my landscape piece of paper, 8.5 by 11 inch landscape. Okay. Now something with your template, you could insert your title block in there if you wanted and have it in there ready to go, right? So that whenever you open this up, you've got 4 tabs, 8 by 11 landscape and portrait, 11 by 17 landscape and portrait. You could insert the title block, save your drawing template file again, override the over one, and then whenever you're ready to use it, all that stuff is in there, right? It's again a time saver. So I'm going to go to insert and browse to my landscape title block, open, okay. There we go, looks good. And then under my portrait one, which is not portrait, modify, I'm gonna modify this one. Portrait, set current, close, looks good. Bring my viewport in. I'm going to insert, more options, or I could have just typed I, browse. There's my portrait, open, okay. Bring that little guy in, click, and there it is, right? And then I would have a couple more tabs. So now if I wanted to resave this template file, right? I'm going to file, save as, and it's going to be a DWT file, and I'm going to resave it over the top of my SB template, save, yes, okay, and now those objects are in there. So I'm going to close that out. Now when I go to reopen my template file, templates, SB template, I open it up, magically, right? Something's finally working today. I have my template file, it's blank, it has all my layers in it, it has my page setups, it has my text styles in there, right? I have these pages set up, ready to print, and I've even inserted my title block, right? Now, this is just kind of you don't have to insert your title block, but it's convenient. And you don't have to because it is available in your block library, so really you could use it at any time, right? It's good to put it in there because it's there. It's something that you will use on every single drawing no matter what, right? And so it makes sense to put it in your template file as a piece of annotation. You don't want to put everything in your template file just because you don't want it to be a gigantic file size, right? But I think this is pretty appropriate.
How did you edit the attribute while it was in place?
I double clicked on it. Just click, click, and it comes up as text.
Because I have a different, it comes up, it says edit attribute definition, but it doesn't have all the options that you have.
Let's look real quick.
So click on it, that comes up.
Let's see. Well, here's so type under default, type something in there. And you made a block out of it.
Yeah, it's a block.
Click on it. Double click on one of these again. I think somebody maybe has changed your default in here maybe because by default that one should pop
Should
up.
come up.
And I would assume that on your home computer that
It's probably going to be
it's
that.
probably going to be that one.
Okay.
Yeah, do that, just double click really fast again one more time. Click. That right there is I think a quick, I don't think it's blocked. So it is, let me see your mouse. Maybe you've got something else because
Made it something funky about this.
let's look. Okay, so it is a block. Oh, your attributes are not part of your block.
Oh.
You did the same thing I did.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. So that looks. Yeah. Okay. Yep. So you're gonna have to explode it and remake those as part of your block.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Any questions so far? No? Okay. So for your assignment for this week, I wanted to talk about title blocks today. I was going to do Hatch, but I think we'll save that for, and actually maybe we'll do that in a couple weeks. But for your assignment, you are going to create the 4 title blocks. They need to have attributes in them, and they need to be created into W blocks, okay? And I'm also going to have you create an actual architectural drawing, all right? So we're moving towards our final project, and your final project will be to draw a house, right? To create you know, an architectural space. And before we get to that point, I want you to take a whack at doing that with something else. And so I'm going to assign this office building, and it won't be due until late next week, but essentially you're going to have these doors and these windows and this furniture that you created in the W block assignment, right? And you're just going to draw this outer shell, and you're going to insert those blocks that you created in that other assignment, right? So when you draw the W blocks assignment, make sure that, or maybe it's not called W blocks, I think it's called door and window, maybe.
Door windows furniture.
Yeah, door, window, furniture. Yep, this one right here. So when you actually draw those, you know, pay attention, make sure they're done correctly so that, let me find that again. Downloads. Pay attention so that when you actually draw this one, you have some blocks with good integrity and you can use them to help you draw this, right? All of these dimensions should be accurate, right? So this first window is 5'2" to the middle. We have a 15-foot, you know, to that center, another 15-foot to the center of this window. You guys kind of get the idea. All of these items are those blocks you generated, so you won't have to redraw those, right? So essentially, when you draw this office space, you're just going to have this outer boundary. You're going to have the doors and windows. When you create the doors and windows, leave an opening or trim out an opening in the exterior wall to put the doors and windows in. And then you're going to have this little storage space right here to generate. Okay. All right. Any other questions so far?
We don't need to put the dimensions in yet.
No, no dimensions. Yep, no dimensions. All right, I'm going to post this. I'll publish this right now. Let you guys work. And that is all for today.